Good morning. Welcome back to the Center for Spiritual Living in Tampa Bay. You know, I took a moment and actually counted, and this is our 10th Sunday of offering virtual spiritual lessons. Can you believe how much time has passed? It's hard for me to believe. But anyway, I'm Reverend Laine Morgan. I'm the senior minister here in Tampa, and I appreciate each and every one of you who continue to show up week after week after week for these live broadcasts on Sunday morning. If you're here this morning live, please say hi to Lori. That makes her so happy. Let us know that you're here. Let us know where you're listening from if you're not from Tampa. And I also appreciate the many of you that have found our messages, our videos of our talks far and wide and have tuned in to listen to what we have to say sometime later in the week. So welcome, welcome. What I know is that Spirit is in each and every heart and each and every home, no matter where you are. Coming together physically is an amazing experience, and we miss that. But being together in the one mind is also powerful, and it's impactful. And so I welcome you to that shared space of consciousness this morning, that shared sense of oneness that we get to experience even in this distancing format. So if you're missing the spiritual and inspiring music you're accustomed to on Sunday, know that it won't be long until we're coming back. And you can always tune in on our members only Facebook page and have a song every day. I try to put an inspiring piece of music out to help us have that heart-opening musical experience until we can have it back here. So I want to pray with us together this morning. I want to share my lesson, and then I will close with some announcements as I have done every week. So if you'll just please join me in prayer. I take that deep breath, that settling in moment, and I tune into that place inside where I know that I know that I know. I know that I am connected to the all. I know that there's only one thing going on right now, and that is life. And I know that life is God. I know there is only one energy, one source of this life, and that is God itself. That energy is called by many names. The name doesn't matter. The presence of it is what matters, and it's everywhere present. It is divinely intelligent. It's so creative, and at its very core, there is only love. There is only peace. There is only joy and abundance. And I know that each and every one of us attuned to that right here and right now. I remember right now that I am one with that energy. The very breath I take is the breath of the divine. I know that's my truth, but I know that's the truth of every single person on the planet, every single person listening to this prayer right now. Their very breath is the breath of the divine. And so I know that the heart of joy is mine. A mind of peace is mine. An experience of every good thing is mine in the oneness of God. And so I speak this powerful, conscious word over this morning. I know that each and every piece of technology works perfectly. I know that each and every element of this service is divinely inspired and protected and provided for by the energy of God. So I call our time together good and very good. And I'm so grateful. I'm grateful for this beautiful morning. I'm grateful for the people in the room with me that are helping make this possible. I'm thankful for each and every one that's listening. I'm thankful for this day. And I release this word to the law, knowing that God picks it up and makes it so. Please affirm with me. And so it is. And so it is. Prayer. There's something about prayer. There's something about taking a moment and being intentional in that moment. And it doesn't just happen in spiritual communities or in churches or whatever. It happens in life. And when we can take an intentional moment before or as we are creating something, there's power in that. And in 2009, there were these guys, and they decided to open a t-shirt company called the Holstein Company in New York City. And in their very first step as a company, the Holstees founders, Dave and Mike and Fabian, sat together on the steps of Union Square in New York City to write down how they would define success. They were taking a holy moment. And the goal was to create something they could reflect back on if they ever felt stuck or found themselves living according to someone else's definition of success and happiness. And what they wrote became known as the Holstee Manifesto. You may have seen it on posters and a myriad of other printed forms. It's on coffee cups, it's on lots of things, and it's powerful. And I want to share this manifesto with you today. They're powerful words that have inspired me many times, and here's what they wrote. They wrote, "This is your life. Do what you love and do it often. If you don't like something, change it. If you don't like your job, quit. If you don't have enough time, stop watching TV. If you're looking for the love of your life, stop. They will be waiting for you when you start doing the things you love. Stop overanalyzing. Life is simple. All emotions are beautiful. When you eat, appreciate every last bite. Open your mind, arms, and heart to new things and people. We are united in our differences. Ask the next person you see what their passion is and share your inspiring dream with them. Travel often. Getting lost will help you find yourself. Some opportunities only come once. Seize them. Life is about the people you meet and the things you create with them. So go out and start creating. Life is short. Live your dream and share your passion." The Holstee Manifesto. If I remember, I'll put it in the newsletter this week so you can read it again or look it up. Because the other day, I went over to the beach just to give myself some space outside of my own personal space that I've been in for weeks. And I wanted to consider this manifesto. I wanted to think about whether or not I was living my life according to someone else's definition of happiness. And if I'm really honest, I must say that as this time of social distancing just stretches on and on, I find myself just wanting to go anywhere. I think all of us are just about ready to burst out of this isolation. And when I decide to go, I want to make it count. So the beach was my place to go make it count. My talk title today is Permission to Leap. This is funny. The notes from our parent organization for our monthly theme of Listen to Your Heart this month encouraged us to share today the wisdom of Gay Hendricks and his important book called The Big Leap. The funny thing is that our themes and our lesson information was provided to us sometime last year, sometime in 2019. So when the team selected Gay Hendricks' book, The Big Leap, for us to highlight today, they would have had no way of knowing that we would all be very, very ready to take a big leap right about now in May of 2020. But here we are. So right now we are all standing in the doorways of our lives, just about ready to leap in any direction we're given permission to leap in. We just want to get out of our current situation. I think most of us have assimilated to the limitations that we're facing, but we're getting very restless and we're getting curious about the future. Some of us will continue working in the same jobs and roles that we had before all this happened. But this time of social distancing may have changed the context and the methods of delivery in which we work. Some of us will never return to the jobs and circumstances we were living in 2 months ago. Some of us won't experience much change at all, but I'm pretty sure that this is a very universal restlessness that we're all feeling. So perhaps some spiritual wisdom as we consider the way forward would be helpful. So as we re-enter our lives, we may have to define success and happiness in a different way now, in a more personal way, just like the founders of the Holstee Company did when they wrote that manifesto about 11 years ago. Each and every one of us zipped into our magic suit as a spiritual being ready to have a human life experience. At the spiritual core of everyone is that divine spark of life. That unlimited fire and impulse of creativity. We all have that in us at the spiritual level. But also at the core of each of us, at the human level, lies our unique gifts and our talents and our strengths and our personality. You know, life is striving to express itself through you in your own unique way. It's the call of life itself, and our job is to answer that call, to pick up the phone and to express ourselves fully. In the book Love and Law, Ernest Holmes it's a volume of Ernest Holmes' teachings before 1920, so earlier in his life. And this is what he said. He said, that spirit is in every living thing, is in every soul latent, simply waiting to be brought forth and come through the avenue we express. It is to bring out these great realities of life, happiness, health, love, and power, to supply these things that make life worthwhile. That's what that great spirit living within us is there for. He's saying that in everyone there lies these great realities of life and happiness and health and power. And he says that these things supply us and make our life worthwhile. These things lie dormant within us, and our journey is to find them. Find them within us and express them throughout our life experiences. Perhaps that's the only definition of success we need, that we have allowed the reality of life and happiness and health and love and power to flow out through us. Maybe that's the only definition of success there really is. The Hindu and the Buddhist teachings call this journey Dharma, or the path to enlightenment. The path to discovering one's life purpose or sacred work or talents or gifts to contribute to the world. And we're all working on our Dharma. Yet for many of us, right this second, it feels like this huge cosmic pause button has been pushed. It's like, wait. If each of us have within us this divine urge that's just waiting to be born and unleashed and let loose, and we believe everything works in concert to allow that to happen in our lives, then I think we've got to look at this current situation as an important step in our evolutionary process. We're each called to live this holy, fulfilling life, moving in the direction of this letting loose of our gifts. And that puts us on a path to bringing our sacred work into form. A little pandemic cannot stop this universal process of revealing our Dharma. In every lifetime, there have been challenges and unexpected turns of events, and for all of us, this pandemic is one of them. Gay Hendricks wrote an entire book about this call within us to reveal our highest and best self during our lifetime. His book is about making the contribution of yourself with a capital S to the world. How do we contribute our best self to the world? He writes this: the goal in life is not to attain some imaginary ideal. It is to find and fully use our own gifts. If we can blend together the wisdom of Ernest Holmes and Gay Hendricks, we have an exploration of this deep calling to bring our spiritual and our human selves together to serve the world. If our spiritual truth is that we have at our core this life, happiness and power and love and health and all that, and at the human level, truth is that we have these unique gifts and talents that come with our personalities and our bodies, then our life work becomes aligning ourselves in such a way that we unleash these two parts of ourselves to come united together as one expression. The most fulfilling life we can have involves balancing these two aspects of ourselves, our spiritual truth and our human reality. The spiritual truth of us is universal. We are all love and expression, strength, joy, harmony. All of that is our spiritual truth, as well as all the other qualities of God. But on the human level, we're all unique and special, and our journey is to learn to trust ourselves and love ourselves on both of these levels. In his seminal book, This Thing Called You, Holmes writes, you exist so that the divine feeling, fire, imagination, and creativity may be expressed through you. The Spirit comes to you with a fresh and new creativity. You need not ask what others have done or how they have done it. Be yourself and express life as you find it. Never imitate. Trust the self. Find the self in God and God in the self. That's Ernest Holmes. And so he's saying, merge these two parts of ourselves. So let's look a little bit more closely at Gay Hendricks' work, because it's quite practical, actually, and you can apply his wisdom to your own life. He writes in The Big Leap that we have zones of expression. If we're going to blend our spiritual truth with our human reality to fully express our own gifts and talents, we must be willing to move out of our comfort zone. Our spiritual beingness can flow only in situations where we are aligned with our highest possibility. So let me talk about these 4 zones in the book that we can kind of express ourselves through. First, he writes about the zone of incompetence. That sounds like a zone that I've been in many times in my life. Actually, every day a little bit. He describes this zone as the place where you're doing activities that you're just not very good at. You know, hopefully many of us can quickly recognize when we're in this zone, because our deepest spiritual truth does not get released very easily in this zone. You know, and if you're stuck in your work in this zone, it's time to take a leap quickly. Like, leap now, get out of it. And if in this zone, you just might get pushed out, actually. If you're totally incompetent, you're probably going to get pushed. So I'm going to try to give an example, a personal example in each of the zones, so it's clear what I'm talking about, and that I'm not too proud to actually talk about my zones, because I have them. So the zone of incompetence within me involves anything mechanical. The people in the room know this is absolutely true. I just really don't understand how things function physically very well. So I wouldn't want to spend my days working in a place where I had to explain or demonstrate mechanical functions very well to others, right? My joy would just never get a chance to flow in this zone. I just get so frustrated, and actually I can get small and tearful when I'm in that zone, because it's just not where my joy is. It's not where my best self is. So I just try to stay out of that zone as much as possible. I have to have other people to help me in that zone. So, you know, maybe for you, you aren't good at solving puzzles or communicating on emotional topics or organizing things. Whatever it is, all of us have zones of incompetence, and most of us have learned how to stay out of them pretty quickly, or get out of them pretty quickly. However, sometimes we can get trapped here. We can. So are you spending too much time in your zone of incompetence? Are you holding on to a situation in your life where your joy and your other spiritual qualities are unable to kind of take root? You might want to take a leap out of this zone. The next zone is the zone of competence. Hendricks describes this zone as the place where you're performing duties and spending your time in activities that you're competent at, but others can do them just as well. In other words, your special interest, your special inherent talent and gifts are not being tapped in this zone. You're surrounded by other people who do the same kinds of things that you do just as well, if not better. So for my own example here, this zone of competence would be things like housekeeping and organizing and networking and things like that. I'm quite good at them. I've spent many hours and frankly years of my life in this zone of competence doing these things. But these kinds of activities are a way to spend my time without engaging my deepest self. When you're just cruising in the zone of competence, you're not tapping into anything deeper in here. The idea is to look in your life for places where you're one of many. When you're one of many, you're in the zone of competence. And if we're going to find our soul's work, it will likely be more uniquely ours to do. And it takes courage to leap out of the zone of competence and into something greater. Hendricks' next level is the zone of excellence. You know, we can be really seduced to stay in the zone of excellence. You know, typically when our human selves find a zone of excellence, we want to hunker down and stay put, because these are the work and activities that you do extremely well, and you often can make a decent living doing them, and you're comfortable doing them. But once we get into the zone of excellence, it's easy to start sleepwalking our way through our lives without our hearts being engaged, without our souls feeling deeply satisfied and fulfilled. For me, I've lived in my zone of excellence for years. I lived in it for a very long time. You know, my corporate world, I was better at what I was doing than most of the people around me. But eventually, I got dissatisfied with myself in it. You know, as I trained others to do the work beside me, I just felt my life energy diminishing. I was hungry for more. I needed to take a leap in order to discover and uncover my dharma, my sacred work. You know, I longed to let what Ernest Holmes called reality with a capital R be more of my daily life. So if you're looking around your life and seeing that you're stuck in one of these three zones, remember that you're actually where you're supposed to be right now, but you are perhaps waking up to an idea that you want to engage your spiritual self even more in your life activities. So about 3 years before I left my former career, I started ministerial studies. I realized that I wanted to unleash my soul and my qualities of itself to live more fully in the forefront of my life. I felt this deep urge inside me to have more meaningful conversations within the context of my job. I was pulled to make a difference beyond the profit of the company I was working for. So I allowed my work, actually, my career, to become my spiritual work. I began to tally up and assess the unique skills that I brought to my career and see if there were something more meaningful that I could use them for. What were my human talents that I could bring into the service of my soul right where I was? So my lifetime of experiences had taught me and shown me that I could speak publicly, that I could write easily, that I could see problems from unique perspectives. I could help others see possibilities in the face of obstacles. You know, these are the things that I deeply enjoyed doing, that I found fulfilling, and I began to look for other places where I could express and use these talents. Like, how could I do this soul stuff in more places? And the wisdom of Steve Jobs rang in my head. Steve Jobs said, the only way to do great work is to love what you do. If you haven't found it yet, keep looking, don't settle. As with all matters of the heart, you'll know when you find it. The late Steve Jobs. So that's the question to ask yourself. What are your human gifts and talents that came along with this magic suit and your personality, and how can you bring them into the service of the soulful center of yourself? How are you uniquely you? What can you do better than most people? What are you doing when you lose track of time and time just seems to fly? What do you really love to do? The answers to these questions are clues to lead you to that last zone. The fourth zone is the zone of genius. Living in this zone doesn't mean that your life is perfect or easy. It means that you're spending your time in ways that unleash your uniquely powerful self. You're expressing your God self, your love, your joy, and your compassion, and your connection to the life power. And at the same time, you're living fully in your human personality and ego strength. Here in this zone, you can uncover your sacred work. Mine happens to be spiritually based work, but that's rare. That's rare. Most people's zone of genius is in a completely secular field. It could be as a teacher or a musician or a bookkeeper or a zoologist. It doesn't really matter. It can be in any field in the world, because all work is God's work if you're bringing your soul to do it. I always say this: God doesn't care what you do. It only cares who you are doing whatever you do. We all know people that are living inspired lives in their zone of genius. It's wonderful to witness because they are allowing the life energy force to shine through them as they move about in the world. See, the energy of the universe gets behind their work because it illustrates that the human self is being in service to the soul. You have a calling over your life. That calling is to bring your personality to life, your talents to live, and be expressed on this human plane. And so we stand in our doorways. ready to re-enter the world that will never be the same as it was when we went behind our doors a few months ago. We may do similar things in the ways that we did before when we move about our world, but I don't think any of us will ever be the same. Things will never be the same. And personally, I don't think I want them to be the same. I don't want any of us to be sleepwalking through our lives in our comfort zones, just existing for a paycheck or a routine that dulls our senses. God is always giving us permission to leap out of complacency into truly living, to leap out of the bleachers and onto the field of play, to leap out of the mud of our routines and into an expression of freedom and purpose. God always gives us permission to leap. Let's take this time to listen to our hearts. Deep within us, there is that divine urge, that sacred calling to live as a spiritual being, no matter what human experience you're having. And if we listen to our hearts, perhaps we can commit to uncovering our zone of genius and leap out of our comfort zones. There's a book called Know Yourself. It was written in 1970, and it says this: the insistent and universal desire for self-expression is the divine urge within us, even God himself tapping at the walls of our heart, urging us on to a fuller life. Let us each listen to that tapping on the walls of our hearts and leap to this greater expression and love of ourselves. I invite each of you to write your own version of the Holstein Manifesto. Define what it means for you to live a successful, spirit-inspired life. I want to end with this prayer from Ernest Holmes. It's in the back of the Science of Mind textbook, and it's called The Call. The Call by Ernest Holmes. He writes this prayer: this I saw, or else some greater presence made it known to thee. The universe is filled with life, the earth, the sky, the sea, and teemed with intelligence, with majesty and might. Deep within me some subtle inner sight beholds and sees, comprehends and knows the all. No fears, no falters, but answers the divine call. To be as one, beyond the bonds of time and space, to overcome the bondage of the human race, and to leap with trust, undaunted and free, into the depths of that infinite sea whose waters calm are ready to receive those who simply, in faith, believe. Let us believe in our own true self. Let us leap into a greater yet to be. Would you join me in prayer? And so into that one power, I leap. I leap. I leap, and I know that the truth of God catches me when I leap. There is a universal presence of love. There is an energy of life that catches me when I take that leap of faith. And so I know for each one listening to this prayer, arising within of that divine call over our lives, that divine call to combine all the gifts and talents that came when we were born into our bodies. I know that each one was born into the right and perfect circumstance to develop those talents, those gifts. And I also know that at the core of every single person is that divine truth of goodness, of abundance, of love and strength and wholeness, and that there is nothing anyone can do to separate themselves from that truth. And so when those two things come together, that divine true self and this delicious human being that we are, when those two things merge, genius is expressed and exposed and revealed. And so I know for each one of us a greater revelation of that true self, and that we leap forward with confidence and joy. And so it is. And so it is. Thank you. Thank you. I do have some announcements for you. If you are following our newsletter or Facebook page, you know that the board has decided to reopen Center for Spiritual Living Tampa Bay in a very limited way on June 7th. If you've not spoken to a board member yet, please be expecting one of them to call you, and please return their call. You know, we're planning on practicing social distancing when we reopen, and to accomplish that, there are several guidelines to follow, which will be explained fully on the website, on Facebook, in the newsletter, on these calls from your board members or whatever. We're asking everyone to pick one service to attend through June and July, either 9 a.m. on Sunday morning or 10:30 a.m. And if you can stick with that service selection throughout the months of June and July, then we can hopefully keep the numbers manageable in order to be able to come back together and correctly social distance. We will ask everyone to wear a mask, so please secure a mask for yourself. If visitors happen to show up without one, we are intending to be able to give them one when they arrive. We're going to continue to share our talks online in some format. We haven't quite figured out exactly how that's going to be, but we encourage everyone to follow their own internal guidance about their own decision to return. And you can if you have questions, please direct any questions to us by email at info@csltampabay.org. Lori will put that in the comments. Or reach back out to the board member that called you. Sunday morning is the only in-person offering we will have for now. Wednesday evenings will continue on Zoom. So if you need a link to that, again, let us know on the info page or the info email address. You know, one important part of running a spiritual center is managing donations. When we come back together, we will have a way for you to donate in a passive way. We will not be passing the offering basket. Matter of fact, we won't be handing you anything when you come in the building. No handouts, no pens, no anything. And so if possible, if you can set up a recurring online payment, that's going to be much safer for the people that have to handle donations. You can do that on our website. And while I'm talking about donations, please let me say thank you and express gratitude on behalf of myself, yes, but on behalf of the entire board. We feel so grateful for your continued participation in our different giving programs. We're going to be coming back together stronger than ever, thanks to each and every one of you that consider CSLTV your spiritual home and give with that sense of ownership. This is my place. I want to make sure everything is still here when I get back, so thank you. As many of you know, I've been very, very public about the fact that I'm going to be out of town next weekend as I travel for the first time since February. I'm headed to Georgia to pick up my new puppy, Maisie. I'm very excited about that. But I'm more excited to announce that Reverend Carol O'Connell will be our guest speaker next Sunday. She's going to be on Facebook Live just like this, so just tune in at the same time in the same place. You don't want to miss her. Reverend Carol has been to our center a few times. You may have met her at my ordination in March. She was one of my original New Thought teachers and served as a minister in the Unity movement for decades. So she's well known. She happens to live in the area now as she's retired. And she was supposed to be our guest speaker on March 15th when we decided to go virtual. And I didn't think that was quite fair for a guest speaker to be the first person to do that. So I'm so excited that we get to give her this platform again to share with you next weekend. She was just available to step in. We're all in for a powerful spiritual message, and I definitely will be watching from my trip with all of you next Sunday, so please tune in with me and say hi. And with that, I hope you have a gorgeous Sunday. See you Wednesday night on Zoom. I love you all.